about lifestyle. It's my lifestyle.
Moment.
1999 through
Will Smith.
Bieber falling off.
Usher?
So during the Usher moment. But this person, I would say, was comparable to Usher. He did many songs with Usher.
Luda.
That's a good call.
Ludacris, if you listen to his discography.
He's
Oh, no,
got
he's
it.
a savage.
I put
Yeah.
Melissa on recently back to, like, and I put it on, and she's like, yo, he's straight up on everybody who went big. I'm like,
Yeah.
yes. At one point in time, if you want Bieber did like 5 songs with Ludacris.
Yeah.
Right? Usher, always with Ludacris. Right? Like, the Fast and the Furious movies, Ludacris.
Yeah.
Like, he's literally in them.
Yeah.
Like, he is so underrated because nobody talks about, whose favorite rapper is Ludacris. Like,
True.
Who's top 10? I'll tell you right now, your top 10 has not made more money as a rapper than Ludacris. Who else is underrated? Who is super underrated?
Juan Soto?
Welcome to the Grouse Crew podcast. I'm Bill Rom. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe. We're dropping right in out of a music podcast that we don't do to talk Juan Soto. Yeah, is Juan Soto the most underrated superstar in the game? Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's a very real possibility that he does not win MVP, and that automatically categorizes him as underrated.
Yeah, and so somebody said his average exit angle is only like 6 degrees.
Really?
So it's the reason why he doesn't hit more home runs.
That makes sense.
Is he's just straight up a nasty dominating hitter. So he hit 29 home runs by accident. If he just was like, you know what, I'm going to tilt a little.
But it's crazy, too, because some of his home runs go, like, straight up, and then they're just gone. And his power, that also makes sense, too, because his power the other way is ridiculous.
And it's also he just barrels everything up.
Exactly.
So when you bat 330, right, you're going to hit a lot more balls than everybody else who bats 260. Right, so Pete Alonso's average exit velocity and his average on like hits and home runs and launch angle, that's all going to be higher.
Right.
Just because it's either going out or it's not doing anything.
Right.
Right? Juan's like, I hit everywhere, doubles, triples, I can drive it here, drive it there, go anywhere.
Also sprinkle in 130 walks.
Like just low-key finesse in that I have more walks than some people have hits on the season. While also being a god with the bat, yeah. I mean, Juan, so we know, like, we did a shirt, and we had Juan Soto's, likeness and autograph and everything else, and it was one of the lower selling ones out of all the ones we did. Meanwhile, he's probably the best player of this generation. Now, crazy enough, speaking about Juan Soto, we were then shared something that somebody else on a different show, don't know what show, was like, Juan Soto needs $500 million. And I literally messaged in the group. I'm like, if you were at the podcast, like Josh Shapiro sent it to us. And I'm like, dude, I literally just sat across from you and said, I'd give him $500 million. I'd do anything for him.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a 12-year $500 million, like, might not be enough, but I would do 12 years, $500 million right now.
Well, they were just talking at the GM meetings, like, the Nats GM's like, yeah, we need to keep him for a long time. I don't know if that's just to save face, to be like, hey, I want him, but
They probably said the same thing about Bryce Harper.
That's what I'm saying. You could easily go back,
that you allowed to just dip out. So like,
and stay in your division, no less.
Facts. So I want to miss it with all of that, and they didn't think he was worth it, right? Which we've all talked about. Like, yeah, like, is he worth it? No. Do I actually think that Bryce Harper consistently is a $30 million player? No. But this year, guess what? He was worth well more than $30 million.
Absolutely.
Right? And he's the guy, he's a borderline MVP candidate. But here's the craziest thing. If he wins the MVP and Soto finishes second, both of y'all were on the same effing team 2 years ago. Like, Nationals, I know why you guys had to trade everybody away. You mismanaged life. Like, just keep Bryce, keep Turner, keep Scherzer, keep Soto, win championships. Like, what are y'all doing? How'd you guys screw that up? So that's probably the most mismanaged team in history, right?
I don't know about in history because we've talked about the Yankees are mismanaged quite a bit.
But like,
also,
I'm talking about mismanaged
going from
World
being a
Series
championship
team. Yeah,
I think because as you're saying that, it is a point of like, at what threshold do you say, okay, we've won a championship, now we have to disband and start over because this person needs to get paid and this person needs to get paid.
But they only let one guy go.
But that's what I'm saying is like, why do that then? If you just won a championship and literally, or not everyone could stay on that team because they had some older guys, but like you could keep the core group for 3 to 5 more years. Why not do that?
Yeah. Why not take the run? And that I look at and I go back and I say, wow, that really is the oddest of things. Mm-hmm. Is that you guys had that good of a team and you just allowed it to dissolve. And it's not like you're an organization that's considered like hurting for money. Yeah, right?
Deets, can you pull that up? What their payroll was last year? Mm-hmm. And maybe I guess maybe the year before that too. I'm just curious when they had Harper left 2 years ago. Two, yeah.
This was his second year.
But.
And again, the Phillies have come out and spent all the money.
Right.
They signed Wheeler, right? They signed Harper. They signed, why am I blanking on his name, the catcher?
Realmuto.
Yeah.
And they're saying this offseason they're going to go get some more expensive pitching possibly.
See, and what's going wrong in Philadelphia?
What's going wrong in Philly? I mean, it wasn't really their pitching. They were in the hunt towards the end of the season.
But they weren't, nobody in the, and again, we talked about it before the season started. The hardest division in baseball was the NL East. And then you watch the games go and you're like, no, it's not. But then one of the teams in the NL East wins the World Series. So, yes, it was, right? They all just bludgeoned each other, right? Maybe the Mets were not as bad. Now, they had a down year, absolutely. But they were winning up until a certain point. They were a good team, right? The Phillies stuck around. Like, the Nationals punted everything, but Atlanta wins everything. That division was hard. Mm-hmm. And am I looking at the Phillies and thinking there was something wrong, or is it just that the division is that difficult?
I mean, I could see it being a little bit of both. I don't remember where they ranked in, I feel like they were missing the clutch thing that we were talking about. I think down the stretch, because that was the thing. Towards the end of the last season, it was up for grabs who wins the division.
Yep.
And it came down to who
was
put
clutch.
up more. Yeah, there you go. And the Braves constantly did the thing that their stats said that they would do.
Yeah.
And I feel like the Phillies were kind of missing that a little bit. Maybe it's in the shortstop spot. Maybe that's where they go out and get a guy like Trevor Story or whatever, like we talked about in the last episode. I don't know. But, I mean, better pitching never hurts. There are guys available. I don't know if they necessarily get those guys. I think the people who are Cy Young caliber that are available right now are probably going to go to more places where they're going to be the guys. Looking at it again, I don't think Stroman comes back, to be honest with you. I could see Robbie Ray maybe going somewhere too. I saw the Angels, and that's something I have here, that the Angels are very interested in getting 2 top-tier guys, which they desperately need.
Where do they come with the money?
I don't know. Maybe they're starting a GoFundMe for themselves to afford these guys. I'm not sure, but they are at least putting it out there that they want to get better, so which they desperately need.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I just the challenge that we're all going to walk into is, I think this podcast at least agrees that if Ohtani puts up another season like he did last year, just matches it won't be as incredible because it won't be the first time it happens. Mm-hmm. So he'll probably end up not winning an MVP if he puts up the same numbers, just because people will be like, I've seen it before, and people will get bored of the novelty, not recognizing that it's still impossible. And I think that's
BS in its own right. Because
I agree.
It's like, but we've just been handing Mike Trout the MVP because he does the same thing every year, and he's amazing. It's like, all right, cool, Mike, you just star residency in the MVP trophy because it's you. Like, if Ohtani just put up the same stats again, it should be.
I am 1,000% with you. I think Ohtani, if he does what he's doing now, he should never not win the MVP.
Yeah,
because it's the most valuable player in the league.
Absolutely,
and he is the most valuable single position player in the entire league. But I don't know what's going to happen. So let's just stick with the NL East. And do you have those numbers, Deets?
Yeah, so I don't know how accurate they are because obviously salaries are a little bit weird. But so 2019 season, the final payroll for the Washington Nationals was $179 million.
Okay.
2020, they finished at $208 million. And then this past season, they finished at $182 million. Now, that's obviously going to include, like, the contracts that they paid with Scherzer and Trey Turner.
Well, but it
before they
also
got
sounds
traded
like
type
the
things.
back half of those contracts did get taken out.
Correct.
Right? So, like, they paid some money, but they didn't pay all the money.
Right.
And that was part of them unloading. So, like, that's a team that we talked about before the season started. It sounds like the Nationals don't have money after the pandemic, right? Because they needed to gut to get to a point that, like, if we don't do this now, we're not going to have money for Juan.
Well, here's
Because we're going to dip into savings.
The other thing, too, is they traded away Scherzer, but they still have Strasburg until 2026 to make it $35 million a year on the books.
Oh,
That's
that's going to age.
You have Corbin's contract on there?
It's around 20. AAV is 23.33333333. So
Okay.
When does it end?
that one ends in 2024.
So, like,
Gotcha.
they have enough pitching. I mean, I don't necessarily think that he's ever going to be the same again.
Who, Strauss?
Yeah.
He's also 33, which is older than I thought he was.
No, he's been around the game for a
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah,
I'm
he's
actually surprised he's only 33 at this point. I remember when he was in college and he was this electric 100-mile-an-hour arm, and everybody was talking about, and he had lost all the weight, and all of a sudden his body just popped on the scene, and people were like, "This is incredible." And then he lived up to it. He's been a great pitcher, but he's kind of got the same kind of vibes that we all are getting with Syndergaard in terms of the injuries on that velocity. The big body men who just don't seem to be holding up necessarily with what's happening. A little too rigid, not loose. And that bearing down on them. The Nationals are in a tricky situation because at this point in time, like, they got some nice young blood back, but your pitching staff is old. Your star player is young. You are misaligned to some degree. He's in the prime and he's cheap. This should be the moment that you dip in, right? You look at the NFL, like when you draft that rookie quarterback, like put all your money in all the other baskets and take a shot at the title. Right, Jared Goff got to a Super Bowl before he got a big contract. Wentz, Super Bowl before the big contract. Like Deshaun Watson, big before, like they were a good team, and you were trying to build around him. Like Mahomes, Super Bowl before the big contract. Now's the time. Soto's making nothing, but you're going to make him $50 million a year soon.
It definitely could be that they're kind of in a weird financial spot, so they're like, all right, cool, let's reset. So maybe when is he eligible? 2024, 26.
I think he came up when he was 19, so you need 6 years.
2025 is his first free agent year.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
So they know
So
they have 4 years to work with.
2023, 2024. So really, so after the 2024 season.
Right.
So if they said, cool, we're going to go all in on 2024, like reset for the next 2 years, and then 2024, let's go get another World Series, and then Juan, you're gone, or have vastly more money.
Right, and that's my thing is like you're missing like the time for title towns right now. Like you got a 3-year run.
They show that they can flex up with money to, what did you say, 180 was the top they had? So they could
top
figure
they
that.
had was 20 something.
They had
208?
208 in 2020. Yeah, 2020.
So they could do it.
Yeah,
It's just they're smart with the rest of their positions.
So that becomes my thing is, do they have the money? And I think this offseason is going to dictate what they are thinking. But if they don't go and sign somebody else to replace Trey Turner, like, and that's the thing that I don't understand. Scherzer I got, but getting rid of Turner is in my mind, he's already undervalued. He's still got another year on his deal before he's a free agent, and he's underpaid at that deal. Why did you move him if you were gonna then shoot your shot this year anyway or next year anyway? You wouldn't have done that. You would have kept Trey Turner.
Yeah, I think it partially has to do with the prospects they got back there. They had a bunch of old catchers.
No shot.
They got, I mean, they got a top tier catching prospect and pitching prospect.
Right, which makes me think they're out on trying to win right now.
That's what I'm saying. So then you
if
give those guys 2 years.
If they're out, what are you doing with your pitching? Nobody's going to touch Strasburg. $35 million a year for 6 more years, 4 more years. No thanks. I don't.
Unless he's doing what Scherzer does.
I don't want your busted ass arm. No, still, Scherzer's done. Like different monsters, different people
For sure.
Different cultural fit. Like Scherzer's just a dog.
Yep.
But Trey Turner, them moving him is the biggest red flag that like they're out on it, and I don't see them trying to do anything to truly be competitive this year. And then you look at it and you go, the Braves won. They're getting back Acuna. Who are they keeping of what they just got? The Braves are going to be good. Phillies are going to come after the title. The Mets are a wild card, man. The Mets are a wild card. So did you guys hear? Why am I blanking on his name?
Sandy Alderson.
No, the agent.
Boris.
Did you guys hear Scott Boras talking about Conforto?
Yes.
The king of queens, the ace of diamonds.
He had all these weird euphemisms.
He had this whole planned out douchey thing for like how he's going to explain that Conforto is worth $25+ million a year on the open market. So my first question is, the Mets extended the qualifying offer. It looks like to me the Mets extended the qualifying offer not because they think that he was worth that amount, but because they knew that his agent thought he was worth more.
Yeah, and then also for the compensation
which is why I'm
up.
saying it.
Yep.
Because in my head, after the season that he just had, I don't know if Conforto was making more than $20 million a year anyway. And would you sign for $18 million a year right now this offseason? No, I'd say you want to probably another bite at the apple, sign the qualifying offer for 18.4, right? And then put yourself back out there to put a better season on the board before you're 30, and cash in next year for $25 million if you play the way that you did in 2020. But like they dumped it, and I just think that that's insanity.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a little surprising. I thought that I understand the concept of like giving them the qualifying, but like I don't want him back anyway. So fine, we'll get his compensation for when he gets picked up by somebody else. Great. But he's making it seem like there's already a ton of interest in Conforto.
Of course, he always says that.
Yeah,
he said that about Keuchel while Keuchel sat on the sidelines for forever waiting to be signed.
Yeah,
and he had to wait until his compensation was gone before he got a prorated portion. So yeah, he ended up getting some of the money that he wanted, but that year in particular, he missed out on something in the ballpark of like $15 million, $14 million. So like, if Keuchel had just signed his qualifying offer, he would have made 18. It would have made more that single year, and then gotten the bite at the apple without any of these things going.
Yeah, I've obviously probably watched Michael Conforto more than the rest of the people.
Yeah,
and like he just doesn't give me the vibe that he's gonna get like what they're actually gonna ask for. I think a lot of the teams are gonna look at him and just say, hey, you're like a really good, decent veteran outfielder, but we're not going to pay $25 million a year for you.
So the challenge is, right, for me, at Michael Conforto's best, Michael Conforto is a top 5 right fielder.
Sure.
Right?
But that's not all the time.
So the challenge is that we just witnessed a very clear not top 15 right fielder. So they're trying to make it, everybody understands he caught COVID before the season started. That's why he was slow. Guys, everybody's jumping on the COVID thing way too much. If my man had COVID and was back playing baseball in 2 weeks, no problems. COVID did not slow his season down. You got to miss me on that whole thing.
Yeah.
Right? You're not playing a sport like when a guy in the NFL gets it and misses 2 weeks because he's sick and he comes back and he starts slow, sure, because you're running around on a field full time for 60 minutes on the field. You're really there for 3 hours running around. Yeah, you're tired. There's a cardiovascular aspect. When you're playing baseball, guys, you're sitting in the dugout between innings and resting fully a lot of the times because you were the last out. You might be sitting in the dugout for 2 more innings. Like that he said that, and that was terrible. And like again, he's got to pump up the value of his guy, and I get it. Did you hear Alderson's response when he said? When he was told that that's what Boras said.
No, I didn't see it.
So I don't know if we can pull up on YouTube Sandy Alderson's response to Scott Boras.
I know Sandy had a lot of things to say.
But Sandy pretty much, for me just kind of bringing it all together, he said that sounds like pretty much a pompous gas bag talking. Like, in aggressive tone, he was like, that dude's sounds like a pompous idiot, an arrogant asshole. Like, wow. This does not look like he's coming back to the Mets. Like, he's gone. Like, I can't. After that comment, like, Sandy's just like, this dude's a waste of space in Scott Boras. So I'm interested to find out what happens with that. But the Mets GM role is just so crazy right now. And I think the answer is going to be the Mets aren't going to have a GM this year.
I think it's a very real possibility.
I think Sandy's son, Bryn, is going to be doing the GM role for a year as the assistant GM, as Sandy kind of dual roles with him, until they can sign the guy they want next year. Because it's now looking like they're not going to make that. They're not going to make that move. And from what I'm hearing and what we're all seeing on the internet, David Stearns is the guy they want. His contract expires after next year, and that's who the Mets are now targeting. He wants the Mets job. The Mets want him there. He wasn't allowed to make the move over. He's got to wait a year, and then Stearns is going to be the guy that they have managing Citi Field's affairs. But yeah, I don't think the Mets are going to do anything. And that means that we're going to sign a manager without knowing who our GM is. It means the GM's going to have to come in and be okay with the manager that we choose. This is a mess.
There is a little update on the GM
Oh,
search.
wow.
Just looking at it right
live
now.
in real time.
Adam Cromie?
So
You know what I'm talking about?
Adam Cromie worked for the Nationals organization.
Yeah.
4 years ago, he was the assistant GM. 4 years ago, he left to become a full-time lawyer.
Yep.
He works in mergers and acquisitions, a few other things out of Pittsburgh. So smart brain, smart mind, guy in his mid-30s, knows what he's doing, has been a part of winning culture. Tell me what we're hearing.
Could receive offer today.
So my thing is that we're now going for a guy who hasn't been in baseball for 4 years, gave up the position because he's like, yeah, I'm out. The Mets are very clearly going to pay him more money than he was making as a lawyer. But does this feel like the guy they want? Or
No.
does this just feel like, hey, listen,
This
we
you
need
settling
somebody.
at 2 a.m.
We need somebody to do a little bit of these things, negotiate some contracts, get some things down. Bryn's here to help you. Sandy's here to do it. Give us a year of your life. You can go right back to being a lawyer in a year if things don't work out. Things slay, will keep you. Things don't work, no harm, no foul. Enjoy all the money we gave you, and goodbye. This just seems kind of out. Now, on the flip side, I could see a world where Cromie's like the guy, like he's an amazing character, because it looked like he left because there wasn't a line for him to succeed up with the Nationals organization. So he said, F this, I'm pivoting, I'm going to go get some experience in some other areas. But he's been an assistant GM before. He's gotten almost all the way to Titletown.
Right.
He put together and was part of the team that put together a World Series winning team.
Yep.
He was there and he was involved in all of that. So I don't hate it. I just hate that it just doesn't seem like right now there's very clear leadership in the Mets organization still.
No, definitely not.
And I get transitioning in New York ownership can be arduous. You look at like any ownership change. I don't think we've had a good one in a long time. I think the best ownership change that we've all ever seen was when Leon Hess sold the Jets to Woody, and the Johnsons then got a whole bunch of winning seasons out of Herm Edwards and Rex Ryan, and they had some success. But it's difficult to transition in New York.
Yeah, no, definitely. Especially like if you kind of look at the current makeup right now, we have no manager. We have Sandy, who allegedly doesn't want to be there. Steve's still trying to figure it out, and we're having trouble getting someone in the GM position at all. Yeah. So, like, there's nobody driving this boat right now. So
So we talked about it, I think, in how I would really love for this to run. I would love for the manager to be hired before the GM.
Yes, I would also like that.
And I'd like
because I think there's so many available candidates right now that are like very obviously would work.
And he can give his insight to even Sandy and an assistant GM.
Yep.
This is the style of player I'd like to go get. right? So here's what I see. He also can then give his assessment on the current roster. Who should we bring back? Who do I like? He can sit down, have good conversations with a bunch of these guys, get a feel for what the vibe is inside, have some more like established motion.
Do you lean more towards the veteran manager over a Carlos Beltran type?
No.
Okay.
I do lean towards I lean more towards a guy who is a leader of men rather than a person who is an old school feel kind of guy who's going to reject the analytics. I want somebody who acknowledges analytics are important and they can inform decisions. I want somebody, though, who's more someone who guys want to rally with and for, and who has a good idea of what the approach of the game needs to be. So, like, Beltran's, like, my dream candidate.
Yeah, honestly, I've opened up more to that. I don't mind an older, like, it would have to be the right person. I don't 100% know who's more into analytics and not. I know some of them have come out and said I just blatantly just hate it and I don't care.
Yeah.
And that's not for me.
Yeah.
Like, there is a lot of information to pull from analytics, and as much as you have a great feel for the game, let's use all the tools we have.
Yep.
And knowing what I know about Beltran, he is at least allegedly a baseball genius.
Yep.
And I think he'd gel with the Mets players well, especially as we're kind of, it seems like we're going towards a more Latin team. Like, he would just kind of fit in there. So I don't know.
I think if they brought Beltran in, it secures the bag on Soto.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Because I think at that point in time, like, Lindor will be there till he's done.
Mm-hmm.
Unless something catastrophic happens.
It seems like they're also making some strides with Javi.
Javi and them are having conversations on a deal, right? You then bring in Beltran, right? You have a guy in Francisco Alvarez, who's the number one prospect in the organization coming up, who is a Salvador Perez type bat at catcher. And then you have Soto, who wants to be in New York. Mm-hmm. And you look at that whole thing and the vibe and what he wants and where he wants to be. Queens is that spot. It is not the Bronx. It is Queens.
Yeah. He needs somewhere where he can go be the star, the OBJ-esque.
Yeah.
Like,
and he wants
putting it all out
He
there.
wants more of that. And we saw it in the postseason, showing up at games, sitting behind the plate. Like, Soto's like, I'm going to be a superstar, and I'm going to live life like a superstar.
Yep.
And I love to see it. Those are all interesting things. I also heard a lot of teams are going to try to get their business done before December 1st, which gives me, again, a lot of frustration with the Mets not having any direction right now, is because every day we're spiraling and hurtling towards December 1st. And, guys, what happens on December 1st?
The CBA ends.
CBA gone.
Yeah.
So how is anybody going to sign any contract, do any work? If they're locked out, if there's nothing happening, if there's no progress on anything, if the owners are like, nope, we're not going to do anything until the CBA happens, you got no contracts. You got nothing done. So you don't know what your team is. So let's assume that they lock everybody out for 8 weeks even, right? Lock out for 8 weeks. 8 weeks only. No contracts allowed to be signed. There's a lot of dudes with no cash getting put in their pocket, right? So they let these guys sit, waiting for their free agency to begin, and they can't. Well, what's 8 weeks after December 1?
Feb 1?
Roughly Feb 1, guys. What happens on Feb 1? We're 2 weeks out from spring training.
Yep.
We're less than 2 weeks for pitchers and catchers reporting for a lot of teams. So you're like, how are you going to sign free agents, build your team, and then just immediately have them report? Right? We don't know what we don't know about our team.
Yeah.
We don't know who's where, who's what.
And that's assuming that 8 weeks is all it takes.
And that's assuming that on Feb 1, everybody just starts signing these exorbitant contracts because we definitely got the CBA done. What if the CBA doesn't get done until, February 15th? We're going to push the season back? If we are, we're now talking about, like, we have no idea what the Mets team looks like at all. Nobody could be signed.
A lot of teams aren't going to be just
mostly the Mets.
I mean, for sure.
Well, no. So other teams who might have problems if they don't do it by December 1st.
Right.
San Francisco Giants.
And that's, the Giants.
Right.
Everybody's
They have
gone. So many free agents. But I think with with the Mets in particular, not having someone at the helm, it's like, well, if we are going to make moves, they're going to be the safest possible moves, and they're going to be minimal.
Which I hate.
Yep.
Well, no, so I don't.
Well,
hate,
I know you don't. I know you'd rather just be like, cool, we're just going to use everybody we have in our farm system
which
and go to town.
I am hoping, upon hope, put the counter on the board that Brett Beatty and Khalil Lee and Mark Vientos are in the lineup on opening day.
That would be awesome.
I
mean, Brett Beatty was a Arizona Fall League All-Star, Star, and was just absolutely mashing.
He's been
Stud.
Amazing. He's been incredible. And the last time Vientos and Khalil Lee both played in AAA this year, both of them, under the age of 24, 23 or less, they both smashed 950 OPSs in AAA. So they were under league average age, and they hit well above average for the level.
Is there a team in recent memory that you could think of that did something like you're suggesting? We're kind of just going real young and inexperienced?
So really young and inexperienced? No, but if I had to give you guys two teams from this past year who had a little bit of a youth movement to allow themselves to just rock out, it's the Mariners and the Indians.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
The Indians took the Mets players and put them out on the field, and Jimenez had only played a shortened year for the Mets at shortstop. He played shortstop at the MLB level. Now,
and then other than Bieber, their whole pitching staff's very young also.
Tristan McKenzie,
Zach Plesac, Logan Allen, all super young guys.
Yep. So they let Tristan kind of figure some stuff out. He had some amazing starts. He had some trash starts.
His second half was unbelievable.
He set a whole bunch of records for them, right?
Yep.
Like he showed you what the future can be, but you let him kind of learn at the show level, right? He got like a half day sent down to the minors, and then he was back up. Like I don't even think his plane landed, and they were like, "Yo, come back." But like in that situation, excuse me, those two teams went with relative youth and allowed it to go. And what were their records?
Well, the Mariners were much better than the Indians, I can
So
tell you that.
You look up the Mariners, Dennis, if you can.
I actually have the average ages for all the teams this past year, too, if you want that.
Hit the average ages across the MLB.
Cleveland Indians, they were the youngest.
Nailed it.
At 26.7. The Orioles also at 26.7. Toronto Blue Jays were third, which is scary to think about with how that team is constructed.
That is insane.
They were 26.8.
They're the team
Texas Rangers.
Incoming dynasty.
Texas Rangers 26.8. Mariners were 27. Pirates
So
27.
So again, like just going right there.
The Mariners were also 90 and 72.
So that's my point, right? What were the Indians' record?
Indians record.
The Indians were 80 and 82.
So that's my point. Both of those teams, the Mariners very much so succeeded with a young team.
Mm-hmm.
The Indians were not as bad as anybody thought. We all said, I said, the Indians have a shot at being okay, right? I don't think they took as big of a... And here's the crazy thing. Both of those teams have made trades with the Mets, and both of them had better records than the Mets this year. So, like, my big thing is you are seeing it work. How did Wander Franco play out in Tampa, right? How did
He's a Rookie of the Year candidate with, like, half a season.
How does rookie year go, right? Like... And he's there. Kalenic got brought up with the Mariners, and he was allowed to struggle. But then you saw some teams that just did not bring up young talent, and I hate it. And what you replaced it with just sucked.
Like, perfect example, the Royals and the Tigers.
Okay.
Finished the season 16 back and 19 back. They had two guys, Spencer Torkelson and Bobby Witt Jr., who are, like, going to be premier dudes.
Yep.
And they didn't come up. And I thought that was ridiculous. Orioles, also ridiculous.
So the Orioles are the one that I'm
48 games back.
So the Orioles are the ones that I'm pulling up right now. And the player that we're talking about is 23-year-old AAA player Adley Rushman, former first overall pick a number of years back, friend of the brand. And all he did as a catcher in AAA is bat .285 with an .899 OPS with 23 home runs.
Beast.
An absolute monster. And this was after 2020 not getting into any real games.
Yep.
Because of minor leagues not existing. So this dude came out of the gate after really having to sit for a long time, and he absolutely mashed. He had a .397 on base percentage and a 5.02 slugging. Your team was terrible, and you're one of the youngest teams in the league already. Why was this guy not up? Now, we know why. Guys are manipulating service time and all this other stuff. But I think that we've gotten so caught up in service time that we're also just losing good players, and we're playing guys who are meh for the hope that if this other guy isn't meh, I have him until he's 32. But like the challenge that comes to me is that then you're trying to sign a 32-year-old and he wants a 5-year deal, where just if you bring the guy up, instead of bringing him up when he's 26, you bring him up when he's 23, and instead of him being good when he's 28, he's good when he's 25. Yeah, I now have to sign him when he's 28, 29, but now I'm going to be able to buy out years. I'll be able to look at a guy and be like, hey, I know you're good, so let me buy out arbitration years. I've seen 2 good years of you now. I know this isn't going away. Let me buy out your arbitration and get you for cheaper than I would if you got to the end. Dennis, you look like you got smiles over there.
I just have a stupid stat, and I went down a rabbit hole because we talked about the Orioles. And remember, we brought up Austin Hayes having like a stupid on-base percent or OPS when runners in scoring position.
Yep.
His OPS for the season this year was 714. With runners in scoring position, it was 915. With the bases loaded, it was 1323. And that is just absolutely stupid.
Again, this is just for me, like, the Orioles have like functional issues that the organization needs to overcome, but the Mariners and the Orioles and the Indians all have 3 different case studies on why you bring up young guys. If your team sucks, bring up the young guy and find out if you can be better than you are right now. Right? Why are you hiding a 23-year-old catcher? Like, you guys just lost. Imagine he was those numbers. If he's those numbers next year, if Adley Rushman comes up and he's the starting catcher on opening day, which he won't be because they'll manipulate his service time again to get him past that.
It's going to be like April, whatever, 15th or whatever it is.
He'll have to sit down there for 3 weeks and wait so that he doesn't count as an actual player, which is the biggest bullshit in the world. But if Adley comes up and all he does is bat 285 with an 899 OPS, and he's pretty much like peak Buster Posey, and he does it right out of the box, you wasted a good season. Because that good season that he had in AAA should have been in the league. And if you had that, maybe you would have won more games. And if you won more games, maybe you'd be looking at everything a little bit differently. Your fans are a little bit more excited. They think you can do some stuff. Maybe you look at a free agent a little differently because you go, hey, you know what? This kid can hit. This guy can hit. This guy can hit. We're maybe only 1 or 2 pieces away from having a functional team. And that's what you saw the Indians do. They went out and they got a couple of guys who were young but hadn't fully gotten to their potential. And Ahmed Rosario, going to be a starter in the league for the next 8 years, right? He's a guy with around an 800 OPS. He's 25. Yeah, he might not be a shortstop, right? He might not be a second baseman. He might be a center fielder. But the bat's legit, and the athleticism's legit, and all the other things are legit. And you're paying him nothing.
Yeah.
And then you have Jimenez. You're paying him nothing. Let those guys rock. And you know what you saw? A decent team. And now the Indians would have to take a step back and go, okay, well, we're going to get natural age progression out of 1, 2, 3 guys. They're going to get a little bit better. Where do we want to put more time? Where do we want to put more stuff? We have a whole bunch of money now because we got rid of guys. Carrasco and Lindor's contracts are off our books. We saved $40 million this year. We got to take a year where we were entertaining. We made some money. Cool, let's lean back in and let's be a good team again because it wasn't too long ago that the Indians were a World Series type team. Cool, reset, reload.
Yeah.
If you're the Mariners are going to come out and sign Conforto to play right field for them. They're going to go get that guy who's 28, who's got experience, who's been a really good hitter, and they're going to put him on a 90-win team, and they're going to win more games.
Yep. And just the progression of guys leaving the Mets, they automatically get better in some capacity. So they're going to be.
Listen, don't be that defeatist Mets guy. Like my bigger issue with the Mets in terms of that is the Mets have had really good times. It's just you gotta be aggressive when it's time to be aggressive, and you gotta be passive when it's time to be passive. I would tell you right now, the Mets were already aggressive, but they have too many unknowns for me to go out and spend big money on players.
Yep.
So I'd rather sit out this year's free agency and roll the dice a little bit on our young AAA level guys. And then the guys we already have. Because if I told you every single day, like if the Mets traded nobody, and I just got progression and I lost Conforto, and Nimmo shifts over to right field, we play Khalili in center. Two of the guys who I have in the outfield have had 850 plus OPS seasons in the last 2 years. In Nimmo and in Dom Smith. So my outfield can bang. So let Khalil Lee figure it out. And then you go back to the infield and you're going to have Pete Alonso, Lindor, potentially Javi, and then you can have a guy, if you wanted to, like Beatty, come up. And if you don't, you still have 800 plus OPS J.D. Davis. You still have a guy like Jeff McNeil coming off the bench unless you trade him.
Yeah, it's not bad. The 2023 free agent class is going to be very interesting.
That's why I would wait it out a year.
But it's very different than this year's in that the majority of these guys are older. Are going to be like the majority of them are 32 plus. And like you're talking about Arenado's, Turner, Brantley, like guys like that who are veterans but may not get like big money. So I don't know if that's something where the Mets get their young guys their experience this year, and then they get the couple veteran pieces. Like I would love Michael Brantley. I love him.
But put it in real terms. Like if the Mets have DeGrom
also a free agent that year.
If the Mets have DeGrom, the Mets have Syndergaard. Do we think that why am I blanking on his name? McGill. Do we think McGill's a piece?
I think he's a 3-4. Yeah.
Right? My question is, we had a guy who looked real good for a while, right? And then his arm collapsed a little bit, and then we found out it's because he needed to get Tommy John.
Yep.
Who's that guy? Who's that lefty whose elbow popped on him a little bit?
Steven Matz?
David Peterson.
Okay.
Right? Like, Peterson to me is a fine pitcher. Peterson to me is Steven Matz. But I'm saying, but Peterson's legitimately that guy can go out and he can pitch innings. Mm-hmm. So you're talking DeGrom, Syndergaard, Peterson, McGill, and the Mets lost their top pitching prospect, Allen. He got TJ to start this year, right? But he's going to be a guy who comes back next year.
He's very highly ranked.
And he's highly ranked, and he is looked at as a great player. So that guy is sitting there. We have no idea what he even is. We're talking about this Mets team, and we're saying all this stuff. The reality is that I have more than enough to be a good team this year, and the Mets have more than enough in their minor leagues that if they were a good team by the halfway point, go ahead and trade some guys, right? But I would run it back with mostly this team next year, and I would not invest in free agency. I think it's foolish. I think it's short-sighted, and I think it cash straps you for no reason. Mm-hmm. Instead, roll the dice on some guys, see who can actually play, and go from there. Because Pete Alonso, he looked like he found his confidence again, right?
Yep.
The All-Star break, that refilled his confidence, and his confidence was at 11 going right into it, right? Lindor looked like he found all his stuff again, right? He had already found it, then he got hurt, he came back, he still had it, right? Javi Baez looks like he was figuring out comfortability of New York, making some big plays, doing some stuff. Nimmo is always a savage. J.D. Davis is a really solid player. McCann is a really solid catcher. Dom Smith could be even better. Mm-hmm. No idea. Jeff McNeil needs to go.
Yep.
But Jeff McNeil should bring us back at least a usable piece in the bullpen. And that's where I go. I look at the bullpen. I say, I want to keep our bullpen still strong. Mm-hmm. I want to let some of our pitching figure itself out. We probably need to sign one pitcher. But the reality is that we're replacing, because we still have Carrasco, who missed almost the entire year with injury, and he should be at least a middling guy for one season for us, and he's just a placeholder for future money. But I told you right now, really our pitching staff of this past season, you're just replacing Syndergaard for Stroman. Everything else will be the same, and you'll have Carrasco for longer, hopefully, and you'll have DeGrom healthy for a full season, hopefully. But if that happens, the Mets are a good team. Why spend the money? You already did it. You already got Javi. And that's where I think they just need to risk it on some of their young guys.
Yeah.
I'd rather follow the Mariners' approach here.
No, I'm definitely leaning towards that. And I think, if anything, getting us one more pitcher locking down Javi is a good start. It's a safe play, and then we kind of, but at the same time, there's still a ton of talk. They're trying to get Chris Bryant. I just seeing it all the time right now.
So one of the things that I'd say is I'm here for Chris Bryant replacing either J.D. Davis or replacing Conforto.
Yes, that's why I like Bryant over like Correa or somebody else's, because he is more versatile in that aspect.
If you told me that Chris Bryant's going to play the left side of our lineup, third or left field, and we're going to trade Dom Smith and J.D. Davis and Jeff McNeil, I'd expect what we bring in for those three players to secure the bag for us to some degree.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I expect that team to be solid. Now, I would say I would keep J.D., and J.D. would be the last guy I traded because J.D. can play third and Bryant can play left field until we bring up Vientos to play left field and move Bryant to third. And then allow Davis to be a hitter off the bench, kind of utility infielder.
If you were going to get Bryant, how many years would you bring him in for? Because remember, we're also talking about Brett Beatty here.
So if I'm talking, again, that's why to me Bryant can play left field, and we also don't know if we're going to have the DH.
Right.
Right? If we end up getting the DH, that doesn't matter to me. That's why I'm saying I keep Davis, and he's the last guy I trade. Because ultimately, for me, his bat can stay in the lineup better than any of the other guys' bats because it's just more versatile and more dynamic in general. Dom is too much of a variable. But I think he's a better hitter than he showed, but I think he needs to be a first baseman so he can focus fully on his bat.
Yeah.
McNeil, to me, just has too much problems in the clubhouse, and that's one of the reasons why I also think a guy like Conforto's gone. I think McNeil was one of Conforto's guys, and I think that there became a divide in the locker room after that chokeout situation, right? Like, that just completely ruins that. So to me, Bryant would come in and secure the culture a little bit because he'd help substantiate that. I'd give Bryant 5 years.
I like that. I was going to say like a mid.
I do 500.
That's not bad.
I'm probably a little overpaying early, a lot overpaying late.
Okay. I probably could see him looking for more than 20. What do you say, 500?
500.
I think I can
he's
see
31, 32?
Something like that.
Yes, sir.
Dennis.
He's 20. He's about to turn 30, but market value right now they're estimating Chris Bryant at $23.5 million a year.
Okay, that's
they
what I
don't
was
give me
gonna
like
say,
a timeline, but that's what I got.
So like the challenge.
Would you do 125?
So hear me out on this, right? Because
Okay.
this is a real thing. Over the last 4 years, who's been a better hitter, Chris Bryant or Michael Conforto? Like, I'm honestly asking that question. Like, can we pull up and can we go?
I have Conforto's numbers. Just
I'm
give me a
getting
second.
Chris Bryant.
Cool.
See, the
we go.
squad
That's
knows
it.
how to work together.
And then also I have an exercise that we could do about Conforto's contract
Last 5?
if you wanted to. Last 5 seasons we're talking?
Last 5.
Gersh, you want to...
Sure, I'll kick it off. So going back to
2016.
Yes, 2016
Or 2017.
2017.
2017. Yes. OPS for Bryant 945, 834.
Hold on. Just go 17.
You want to go
OPS.
17? 946.
939.
Wash.
Cool. 2018, 834.
797.
I'll give it to Bryant.
Sure. 2019, 903.
856.
I'll give it to Bryant.
2020, 644.
It was only 54 games at Conforto, but 927.
Only 34 of Bryant on
There you
that.
go.
Well, that's because it was a shortened season anyway,
Right.
but Conforto played the whole thing. So that goes to Conforto.
Fine. 2021, 835.
729.
So I'll give it to
So
Bryant. So, but I think that one of the things that we learned was they haven't been too dissimilar in those windows.
I would say Chris Bryant's better.
I would say Chris Bryant's better for sure, and they're the same age. But they're not that dissimilar. And Conforto had the better OPS 2 out of the 5 years we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Or they matched each other in one. They were within like 10 OPS of each other. Like there's not enough data. Not enough data. But like to me, you look at that and I say, okay, there's not a tremendous difference. So if we don't think Conforto is worth 20, Why do we think that Chris Bryant is worth 24, 25?
Because he also plays third base.
Does he though?
Yeah.
But like he a big boy. He's gonna at some point in time that defensive ability is going to wane.
And then he plays the outfield.
Right, but so let's say that he's more for us, a left fielder. So I'm comping them both as outfielders.
Okay.
Right? And like if I'm comping them both as outfielders, yes, I am with you. Chris Bryant is the better player over Conforto. I'm with on that.
Mm-hmm.
But by how much? If we're all sitting here thinking right now today, what do we think Conforto is getting as an annual salary? What do they have as the projected on Conforto? Because I know you have it.
$19 million.
So that's why I say.
So we're saying there's a $5 million difference for like an average. If you actually averaged their OPS over the last 5 years, it's even. Because
Sure.
Chris Bryant had 1 year where he was an abomination.
Then I think it's fine to say $3 to $5 million between the fact that Chris Bryant can also play third base for us. I think that's reasonable.
Okay. So I'm still saying I'm going 5 years, 100.
Okay, I think
I don't
that's
think 125. I don't think 125 is worth it.
I think that's going to be the ask, but I think that is the safe and probably the right move for them if we're going to go 100.
Right.
Yeah.
And if he wanted 110, I would think about it.
Yeah.
Right? Because I could start to think in my head. I'd be like, okay, 110, like it's 10 more million.
Mm-hmm.
Costs 5 years. You get an extra $2 million a year. That doesn't move the needle.
That's
for me
where
to
I
secure
think is
the bag of
the
a player who'd be a good cultural fit.
Yes, I think that's the 22 to 23 a year is like the happy
Chef's
medium.
kiss.
Yeah.
And that to me again goes back to if Conforto to me is an $18 million player.
Is he a Boris guy?
Can't be.
I hope not.
If he's a Boris guy, he's not coming to the Mets.
No. I mean, Syndergaard's a Boris guy, right? He might take it. I hope he takes it. That'd be the smart thing.
Syndergaard's taking it.
Yeah.
Syndergaard's taking it.
I have a question.
Sure.
Yes.
So right now we're looking at the free agent class of outfielders. There's only 4 guys that made more money this past year than Conforto. One of which is a guy that Gerson's been talking about a lot, Nick Castellanos.
Yep.
Nick Castellanos right now, his market value, they're guessing it's around $21 million a year. He's a year older than Conforto.
21, that's it?
Yeah.
Really?
Look at his actual numbers.
His numbers are not bad over the course of his career.
So same thing with Conforto.
My question is, do you go with someone like that where it's going to cost you a little bit more than Conforto would have been, but the bat is probably going to be slightly better?
Well, so then this goes back to like, do I take Boris's side on something, right? Do we have a recency bias on the bad season by Conforto, and we're forgetting the 600 OPS season by Chris Bryant?
That was 2020. That was 2020.
Right. So,
Yeah.
but if we had flip-flopped it and we had said that Conforto and his bad year were both the same time, right? Conforto would have won 3 out of the 5 years OPSs, right? And Conforto would be considered just as good as him. And their OPS as a total, and we'd be looking at Chris Bryant like, hey, he's aging down. Like, he was good younger in his career. The bats dropped off a little bit, blah, blah, whatever you want to say. So we have a little bit of a recency bias on Conforto not having a great year while every single player on the Mets had a down year for their numbers. Every single one almost across the board. No one had a good year. I've never seen a team be this bad systemically together that the Mets were this year.
Yeah,
Everyone was garbage.
It was
Everyone was garbage at the same time. Then you got a little bit of hope because Pete Alonso figured it out second half, but his overall season numbers don't look super, super impressive.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Castellanos is like roughly a 300 hitter for like most of his.
But with less power.
Yeah, his home runs.
less
I mean,
on-base
last year he had
percentage.
34 home runs, but he kind of averages like 15 to 20.
Right. And,
Yeah.
and I would tell you when I think about Conforto, I think about 26 home runs.
Yeah.
Like that's to me like a typical full
How many homers did Conforto have last year?
in 54 games.
Uh,
Probably 16.
Or this year, whatever.
this
15.
year that just happened, he
Yeah.
had 14.
Okay.
But he also didn't play the full season. He was hurt for a little while.
He played 125 games.
Right.
It's not.
So he
nothing.
missed, he missed 40 games.
Yeah.
Right. So he would have been a 20 home run guy if he doesn't miss any time.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, if we're saying that he was hurt and that sapped something from him,
Mm-hmm.
and then also the Mets down year. So again, I've been on the bandwagon of the difference between Conforto and Harper is not that big.
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason why I'm saying Conforto doesn't get a lot this year is because of the recency bias of what he got. But I don't think that there's any difference really between Chris Bryant, Castellanos, and Conforto. And I would give all of them relatively the same amount of money.
I think
the only difference for me with Chris Bryant is the versatility at third and outfield.
Mm-hmm.
Because it gives the Mets what they need. Conforto has been our right fielder. It would become Nimmo. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think we're underselling Conforto because of the recency bias of a bad year.
Mm-hmm.
And we're putting some stink on him. But I that's why I don't want any of those guys.
Well, here's my thought too: is it being overvalued just because they're the cream of the crop? Call it for this offseason, because there's only 7 outfielders currently making more than $20 million a year on average. You have Justin Upton, Jason Hayward, George Springer, Bryce Harper, Christian Yelich, Mookie Betts, and Mike Trout. Outside of Upton and Hayward, I would say that you're not putting them in the right class.
So my question is, who's a 31-year-old outfielder who's gotten to this contract who's better than Conforto?
I mean, didn't Mike Trout get it at 30?
Mike Trout's young, like a different case study.
Okay.
I'm saying like who we're not talking about, who got paid less, who signed their contract, but it's less than $20 million. Because you're telling me the guys who are all making more than him, but part of that is if we have a guy who 3 years ago signed for $19 million a year, $18 million a year, right? Mm-hmm. Like that guy's contract at the time was good, but he signed a 6-year deal at $18 million a year. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But who is that guy? Who's in his 30s, early 30s outfielder who's still banging, but just we're forgetting about?
Ozuna?
Because you said there's only so many outfielders. But you're talking about free agents?
No, these are like I was giving.
Well, Mike Stanton is better.
Giancarlo?
No, Mike. I said it specifically. I made a choice.
Better at what?
I guess he might not be.
He's got better numbers OPS wise, and he's making more money.
Yeah, but
all I'm saying is
he doesn't play.
But yeah, I'm saying, he's a DH making 25.
Yeah,
million.
But he's making 25. But you can't count him as a DH. He plays the outfield.
He mainly DHs.
Right, but that's why the Yankees are always misconstructed.
Are you thinking about like right field specifically? Because
no, I'm thinking about outfield.
Can you show me what Starling Marte's
Bryce
value is going to be?
Bryce Harper makes more than him.
Marte, I don't have.
Starling Marte is the guy who I would go get, like at center, if you weren't going to start somebody. Because I don't think we need a corner outfielder. I'd rather have a center if we're going to spend the money.
Marte last year made 12.5, so a little bit more than Conforto. Since he's older, I don't picture his contract being as high.
How old is he?
He's 32.
He's 33.
Okay.
So, no, again, I think that you're saying that, but average annual salary, Marte might come in and get $20+ million.
Yeah.
Because he's earned it.
What about Ketel Marte?
I don't have him up. I can look it up.
Okay.
And so really the point that I think we're getting to is $20 million is around the line of demarcation for a bat that's mid-25 home run.
Yeah, for decent bat, good outfielder.
Yeah,
like $20 million.
A guy with an 830+ OPS who's an outfielder is looking at $20 to $25 million.
Yeah, and if you're Chris Bryant, you have a little more versatility. Cool, we'll give you 22, 23.
Right. And like that's kind of my thing. It's like I look at the Mets. I don't need more corner. I just don't look at corner and say, "Hey, that's where I want to go."
What does Joey Gallo get paid?
Gallo's still got one more year left, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a corner infielder that went to the outfield type thing, with a big bat.
Yeah.
He is 9.5.
Okay. Is that like a 1-year deal or what was that?
It looks like it's just a 1-year deal.
Gotcha.
So
it'll be very interesting.
You see what I'm saying? Like when you really start to line it up, like I just don't know why I want to pay that money. If I'm the Mets.
Yeah.
Especially with the Mets minor league system, you know what the Mets don't need? Hitters. I'd tell you right now, right this second, the Mets have 4 or 5 guys who are inside of a year that they can hit at the MLB level. And if we're really aggressive on Beatty could be up in the show next year. I could see Vientos, Beatty, and Khalil Lee all up on the Mets next year from a talent standpoint.
I mean, listen.
The year after, I see Francisco Alvarez.
Yeah. I mean, Khalil Lee got in early this year, albeit because of injuries. Like, he was there.
Yeah.
and he was on the cusp, and they were like, all right, cool, you didn't do that good. Go back down, get some work, do your thing.
But then just
he
never
did.
brought him up.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I just don't get it. I don't understand it. I get you're using an option.
Yes, and there were plenty of opportunities for him to come up. Plenty.
But they just didn't have this moment. Because, like, Pete Alonso was saying all that BS about, oh, we're still in it. Like, just relax. We got this. Like, no, you didn't. Like, and then you to bomb it as bad as you did. Like, you got to eat that. You got to take that on the chin.
Yeah. I mean, he said that, and we all were like, we know how this is about to go, brother.
That ain't it, Chief.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the fact that the CBA exists at all is just going to create so much havoc here. Yeah. I like that there's all these conversations happening, but I think they're happening now because of what's going to happen in 3
you're already
weeks.
getting guys signed. People are doing all sorts of stuff, shifting things around. And one thing we talked about many episodes ago, and we brought it up a little bit today, who still is hurting from being shut from COVID? Because if you didn't get enough people to come back this year and your team wasn't good enough and you were shut the year before, you might have lost money this year again. Mm-hmm. And if you lost money this year and lost money the year before, where are you going to sign these guys with? Oh, well, they're billionaires. They've got the money. Billionaires are billionaires because they don't lose money, people. Like, and if they've got something that's losing money, they take it as a tax write-off. They don't deepen the investment into a loser. Mm-hmm. They need to see that there's some type of sustainable thing. Now, that's why for me, like, if I'm thinking about the Mets with Cohen, I think he's a guy who looks at this and says, we're not going to be cheap next year. But I don't need to be the top salary in the league next year. You don't need to be frivolous
either.
I can wait. I need more of this organization needs to get fixed before I get to that point, before I really go into it. Plus, I got to see, is Alonso the answer? Is Lindor the answer? Mm-hmm. Who are some answers I have, right? Because I'm going to find them out next year. And when you're the rest of the league, San Francisco's got a ton of money. They just got a big run on a light budget with a lot of free agents coming out. They've got a lot of money to spend and nothing tied up and a whole bunch of young guys. The Mariners are going to have a whole bunch of money to spend and they're going to throw it. The Mariners are going to do what Toronto did. And they're going to take this nice young core and they're going to lean some good
I hope a lot of people look at what Toronto's doing.
Yep. Well, Toronto's winning it all next year.
For sure. But like the concept of how you bring your young talent in and build a dynasty.
When did Bo make his debut? Right? Like, how was Bo as a
3 years ago, I want to say?
But, like, was Bo, like, the dude right out of the gate? Like, was Bo, like, an instantaneous, like, superstar?
His rookie year, he played 46 games in 2019. He had a .311 batting average, .930 OPS.
So he came right out of the box, ready to bake. Mm-hmm. He actually had a better OPS.
I don't think Vladdy did. That's what's crazy. Vladdy's first year was Zan.
Right. But, like, Bo came up, if he came up in 2019, at that point in time, he was roughly 20. He was about to be 21.
Yep.
Right?
In his age 22 season, he batted .301.
And then Vlad Guerrero Jr. came up that same year, but started right from the jump. He had a 900 OPS. But he played the full season, hit 30. No, wait, hold on. Back it up. He had a 772 OPS. Mm-hmm. So he went 772, 791, and then this year was 1,000. So Bo Bichette was the better player. Bo's been the guy right out of the gate. Mm-hmm. But they let Vlad come out and just be meh for 2 years. For 2 years. Because his minor leagues numbers had to, like, Vlad Guerrero Jr.'s minor league numbers had to have been good enough to allow him to make the move to the show, right? So I'm pulling up his last year as a minor leaguer, and I have nothing.
I think we're all working on it.
Did he never play in the minors? No. So his minor league career stats, he had 1,075 at bats. He batted .331 with 44 home runs and a .945 OPS. But he only got 1,000 at bats as a minor leaguer. But he had a 931 OPS on 1,000 at bats. The guy I want to comp him to for funsies.
Mm-hmm.
Is again, so that would mean 1,000 at bats is enough, right?
Yeah.
To really know where a guy is. But the
Right.
reason why he was brought up was because he had gotten to a 930 OPS at that. Like he had finished. So Mark Vientos, ding, has 1,140 career at bats in the minors, and he was drafted as a 17-year-old, and he has an 806 OPS in the minors. Last year, 933. Like, 1,000 is 1,000 the mark? Is 1,000 like enough at bats for you to know?
Mm-hmm.
Like at this point in time, if a guy's good at 1,000 at bats and he's gotten to AAA, like that's enough. Because you look at that and yeah, listen, I get it. His dad is a Hall of Fame level player. He's got all this other ability, all this other stuff. Again, Khalil Lee, 1,741 at bats, an 806 OPS in the minors. Last year, 951 OPS.
Brett Beatty's at 600 so far with an 842 OPS.
That's the point, right?
Yeah.
Like Brett Beatty is, like, for me, kind of like the guy that they've been showing, but that's because his 840 OPS is better than both of those two guys. Mm-hmm. Right? At way less at bats.
Yep.
Right? At way less at bats. So, like, they're moving him more rapidly through the system to get him to that point. The last guy we're using as the comp, Bo Bichette, 1,300 at bats, 894 OPS. And he has an 894 OPS in the minors and an 850 in the majors. So his OPS only really dropped by about 40 points.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about one of the premier players in the game at this point.
Right.
Like, yeah, man. I look at it and I go, I don't need these guys to be superstars. I don't need Bo Bichettes. Mm-hmm. I need dudes who are starters every day.
Yep.
And Khalil Lee with a center fielder with an 810 OPS in his career, when you also have to take into account that Bo Bichette and all these guys didn't have a COVID missed minor league year. Mm-hmm. So a lot of these guys, they maybe would already be up. They would have accumulated all these. Like Vientos finished this year as a 22-year-old in AAA, but he missed all of last year. If he had done these numbers last year, right, that would have been as an age 21 guy, he'd be in the show.
Yep.
Like we would have brought him up this year.
Here's what I'll say about just all the prospects we're talking about. And this seems like a likely concept. I don't really foresee the Mets making any big moves in the next 3 weeks.
Yep.
I could be completely wrong, but I feel like that's probably not a thing. If anything, it'll be like one guy, maybe two of a Javi, and then if they want to shock the world and go get Bryant, those are probably the only two people I could see us doing. If that happens and we get into the lockout, I think all of a sudden our prospects become way better looking. And it's like, okay, maybe we do go down this route because we can't do anything. Yep. And especially if they don't have a GM, like they're gonna be on the safe. They're gonna err on the safe side, especially with Cohen being in only his second year as owner.
Yep.
And I think that's what they do, and I think that it'll satisfy the fans enough of like, hey, we're gonna bring up the young guys and see how it goes. I know everybody wants to go win now, but at some point they'll recognize.
Who says they can't? But that's the thing, right?
Listen, you bring up a bunch of prospects, most people will not say, other than like the Rays and it being like, okay, cool, Wander Franco's Jesus. Other than that, I don't think the Mets fans will fully recognize how good our people are.
Who is the last player that we developed who didn't come up and play well? Because this is where I'm most frustrated with the Mets.
I'm gonna name drop somebody that John mentioned, Gavin Cicchini. He was a highly touted guy.
But Gavin was a highly picked shortstop, right? Mm-hmm. Whose brother was a good player, and he was given the benefit of the doubt as a draft pick. But Gavin never became that guy for the MLB level. I'm saying he was never that guy in the minors. Like his minor league career was underwhelming. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking that he ever even had like a good minor league season. I'm saying what's the last guy
The majority of the people who we brought up recently, and if you look at our roster, a lot of it is homegrown. They've at least come up and been adequate to pretty good.
Gavin Cecchini's career minor league OPS is a 729. So like and he got 83 at bats in the MLB and has a 571 OPS, 217 batting average.
83 at bats total.
83 at bats total.
Wow, I thought he was there longer.
No.
Damn.
So that's my point. Like they probably only brought him up because they needed to.
Mm-hmm.
And last year it looks like he played a little bit in the minors because he's getting that bread to keep playing it, and he had a 648 OPS. Cool, fine. More my point is like. You look at who the Mets have brought: Nimmo, Conforto, DeGrom, Syndergaard, Wheeler,
Harvey,
Matz, Harvey,
Dom Smith,
Pete Alonso, Dom Smith. Like your
Nito.
worst, Tomas Nito, the worst player the Mets have had recently come up and play is Ahmed Rosario. And Ahmed was a mid-700 OPS everyday starting shortstop for us.
So then what's our issue?
The issue is that we're abandoning the fact that we have been developing good players for years. And we're not relying on it. We just pulled up a whole bunch of at-bats for players, right? Who've played in the minor leagues in other organizations and other places, and what they did and when they came up and how did it look.
Right.
Francisco Alvarez has 500 at-bats in the minor leagues, and he has a 933 OPS in the minors.
I think we got to this point where in the last like few years where we won a little bit. Cool, we brought up our young guys. They were decent, but we're now in the okay, cool, let's win now, and not okay, maybe we can recycle again and do this again.
But you can, and that's all the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
Is that every team can win now while still giving a young guy a spot in the lineup and letting him sink. Put the dude in the 8-hole, let him figure it the F out, let a guy bat 270. But the reality is we're playing. What did Villar bat this year? And this is systemically across the league. We talked about this with Adley, with Baltimore. Like you have guys playing who don't deserve. This season, Jonathan Villar batted 249. He had a 721 OPS. Oh, no, hold on. That was his projection. He had a 738 OPS. His career OPS is a 729. You got exactly what you thought, but it's only a 729. Only. What did Ahmed Rosario get? Because this is like for the Indians. Ahmed Rosario this past year with the Indians, a 731 OPS. So literally, Villar and Rosario are the same, but Ahmed is 25 and might be something. Villar is 30 and is definitely not.
I think.
Why are you playing that guy? It's because we have this professional at bats and like all this stuff. Yeah, you're gonna. You know what? You're gonna lose some games because of a young player fucking up. Mm-hmm. Bleep that out in the future maybe. But
I think that
you're also going to have games you win because a young guy comes up and does something that nobody else could do.
Right. I would say the only real difference to me if you exclude the outliers of occasionally the young guy will come do something great. Villar's best thing that would separate him from Rosario is his glove. And I think that's why, at least in this year, why I would have rather have him. If you're saying that the numbers are comparable to the same, Villar's glove just outright better. He was a better shortstop when we moved him over there when we needed him to, and he was a very good third baseman for when we didn't have JD and we needed somebody there.
But we also had what's his name, who was in AAA all year, Drury. All Drury did was come up and smash, and he's just another guy in our system. And like the guy who I still to this day. It saddens me that he's not a organizational Met for his entire career, because there's no reason that this player should ever have not been a Met. And it's Wilmer Flores, right? Mm-hmm. Wilmer, the last 3 years, this year was his worst year, where he batted 262 with a 782 OPS. And he plays second, third, and first. Like,
loved Wilmer.
I loved Wilmer, and I still love Wilmer. But you look at that, and I go, he's got in his 9-year career, he's got a 754 OPS, and that includes the fact that he was brought up as a 21-year-old, and in that age 21 season, he had a 542 OPS in 101 plate appearances. So 2013, when they brought him up, that's the last time they were willing to eat a spot for a young guy to get at bats. And you know what he rewarded them with? A whole bunch of years where he had a high 700 OPS off the bench. Age 23, 703, but age 24, 788, 795, 848, 830. Then this year, 782. Like,
That's
just
solid.
That I don't need him to be a superstar. I just need him to be our guy. Mm-hmm. And everybody's always rotating. Villar is somebody else's guy. Villar was somebody else's like young up-and-coming prospect who underwhelmed them. Mm-hmm. So he comes to us as just a savvy vet. And our savvy vet goes somewhere else.
Yep.
And it's just like, stop. Why? Just keep the dude. Give him the time. So, yeah, my big piece that I guess I would say for what I'm hoping over the next coming weeks is I hope this CBA makes massive strides on bettering the lives of every player, not just the old heads. Because, yeah, you can go, oh, well, I got to do this for my 30-year-old who's in free agency now, who's already sacrificed. Mm-hmm. When you think that way, you'll never make the right progress.
Yep.
Somebody's got to get, like, screwed over a little bit. And it's going to be the guy who's a free agent right now. Mm-hmm. But who's the loudest guy right now? Who's going to yield the most money right now? The guy who's a free agent right now. So he's both the loudest voice and the one that needs to die to succeed for everybody else. But we can't have I can't have Adley Rushman in the minors.
No. It's a systemic change that needs to unfold, and what's most alarming is like there was no real news about the CBA for a little bit, and then I think it was John Heyman came out and was like, "Yo, this might be the most like lack of progress and hostile environment to get this done that he's ever seen." And that's alarming to me. And like we were around for a certain conversation and we saw the hostility that is on both sides. And I'm concerned. I don't think this is going to progress how we want it to, and that's unfortunate. And because they're missing the fact that the common ground is the players. Like, let's do this for them. Let's figure it out, because there's clearly things that they want that they're not getting.
But I think to me the common ground's not just the players. The common ground is the game of baseball, right? Mm-hmm. And the common ground on the game of baseball is guys being kept in the minors is worse for the game. Guys getting exorbitant contracts and then not being able to unload them because they signed for 12 years when they're 30 is bad for the game. Mm-hmm. Both things need to be fixed, but both sides have reasons why they don't want to fix it. If you just were to rewrite the CBA and forget that anyone ever existed, you'd do this completely different. And I think that somebody's got to step in independently and be like, yo, here's a Bill of Rights for the players and for everybody. But here's a way for you guys to make sure that you can keep developing young players, but get them to the show faster.
Yep.
And then also have a reason why you have to bring them up. And again, my big thing that I'd love to see is that every young player is signed to a 5-year maximum deal. 5 years is maximum deal. Oh, well, it might take a guy 5 years just to... Great. You guys can re-sign him after 5 years and give him another signing bonus. Oh, well, we drafted him for $5 million, then we put a lot of coaching into him and all this other stuff. Like, you know, we want to recoup the value. Bro, you're going to get the value.
But the thing is, and like I agree with that, and I think that's also why the minor leagues are so flawed, is because they do that, and then those guys don't make it to the show.
Right.
Or it takes them forever to do so. It's like, okay, well, then why did you draft them if they needed 5 years?
If you draft a guy in the first round who 5 years later hasn't made it, it's either your organization or the player.
Yep.
It frees both of you up. Mm-hmm. But like, oh, well, what if he's a stud? I know he's not his best when I drafted him at 18. I know if I bring him up at 21, he's not going to be the best version of himself. So I have to start getting him to free agency before he's the best version of. Cool. Sign him to a deal when he's 22, and he only sign Wilmer Flores after his age 23 season when he had a 703 OPS. So if I told you that you had a 23-year-old third baseman who batted .263 with 16 home runs and a 703 OPS, you tell me that you're going to sign that guy for anywhere between $8 and $12 million. And let's say that you're like, cool, we're going to sign him for 4 years, $10 million, $40 million. And then he, 4 years later, in his, so 24, 25, 26, 27, his age 27 season, when he gets another bite at the apple, he's going to have an 848 OPS. Yeah, he's 28. You're going to have to sign an 848 OPS guy at age 28 to another contract. Did you spend more on that guy? Yes. But if he shows you that he's worth it early enough, he deserved it. You shouldn't just, but now we're also not in a situation where we have to pay that guy, we have to do a 15-year contract for him because he's never gotten paid and he's starving. Right? He just made $40 million. Hey, you made some nice progression. We're going to now sign you for $16 million a year. And cool. Everything needs to change. Everything needs to change. And I don't know if any side is willing to do it, but there's so much damn money that if you guys just all got out of your own ways and you fixed that thing, the game would be better. And I could watch Adley Rushman every time he plays the Yankees, crushing home runs out of Yankee Stadium, crushing balls, hitting 40 home runs, and being a Hall of Fame potential catcher. I would have been seeing that for the last 2 years. Instead of, I haven't seen it yet.
Yep. It's broken.
It's broken. Let's fix it.
Cool. Sounds good to me. Guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Let us know what free agent you want to see your team sign, and we will see you on the next episode.
Baseball lifestyle, it's my lifestyle.